Hi and welcome all, high or low, butcher baker, tall or small. I am Grimnir and this is the Grimnir Gate. Playing Lord of the Rings Online. Today we are following the further adventures of Elladan and Elrohir.
A strange fate brings you hither.
The brilliant broad-beam emissaries of the Blue Mountains have not more than arrived at Rivendell before the Lord of the last homely house asks for yet another favor. After the riders in black were swept away in the river Bruin and on his command, scouts have been sent out to find out if they still pose a threat to them. Among the scouts are his two sons, Elladan and Elrohir. They might need some sturdy and sharp-witted company on the way. Well, sturdy they are, but only halfway sharp-witted, Bloodbow reasons to himself. He wants our heroes to keep a watchful eye on his boys, those two younglings from Thorin's Hall. And this even before we have had a bath after the long travel on the Great Eastern Road. The captain agrees, but only after the half-elf throws in some coins into the bargain. When they come to the banks of Bruinen, a strange air has attracted malicious and blood-seeking carrion flies and maggots. If they are attracted to death and decay, it's best to stay sharp and ready and not play slaying games with your brother. On the other hand, a fight is a fight and a win is a win, whatever game and the gravity of the situation. So why not throw yourself into it? And at the same time keep the young one from starting such a long journey all grumpy and griping. Suddenly, in the middle of the stream, the aftermath of the Bruinen's wrath becomes clear. The remains of 3 black horses lie torn on the banks in the ford. Only 3, not 9, and no sign or trace of the riders. Elladan decides to send the dwarves to see how it fares for his brother further downstream in the fens, while he keeps watch over the forest edge. Maybe Elrohir's found other clues to the fate of these robed riders. The infestations of malicious insects is as bad down here, and the veil of dread is thin but distinctive, like the fat on the lips of a mutton-eating troll. Soon it becomes obvious why. Another 5 of these dreadful mockeries of steeds lie broken in the river. So that counts 8 horses, not 9. And where is the riders? The only sign of them is a tattered and marred cloak, reeking of evil. Is there something still lurking in the forests around the river? Or have they returned to their dark master where they came from? A faint hope indeed. Following the river south towards Talbruinen and further, their youthful playfulness slowly changes to a growing concern about the enemy's movements in these regions. Like on a whim, they decide to pursue some sort of bird that they've caught a glimpse of. Apparently, this Gwir, might have seen things that wingless earthbound folk can't. Bird talking, that must be something like Drasi and his treasures in Ered Luin. A fair bit on and no Gwir to be found, at least at Pembar in Eregion, where it was expected. Well, darn and blimey, that's a shocker. Master Nergrim is a good tracker, but finding traces in thin air is probably some sort of elf magic, and not very effective, it seems. The restlessness of these youngsters become very clear when Elrohir, without as much as a bite to eat or a drop to drink, sets off, trying to find signs of that bird. Since the word of a dwarf is as solid as the bedrock, especially where there is coins of silver involved, the only right thing to do is to chase after him. A feather is found, but not on its own. A trail of slaughtered boars and some really unsettling clawed tracks leads out on the open grassland. A holder of such claws must be taken quite seriously, Master Bloodbow points out, but to no avail. The elf boy rushes onward, overtaken by youth and lack of foresight, just to find himself eye to eye with drakes and whelping sprouting fire. But that is nothing that bothers two proud descendants of Asagal of Belegos, the dwarf king who wounded and drove off the golden worm himself, Glauru of Angband. An enraged drake matron instills more wrath and valor than fear in the hearts of these two proud broadbeams, and poses no more danger than a few burnt eyebrows. And all of a sudden, when the fighting and the peril is over, this great eagle appears out of the blue sky with not as much as a smoking tail feather. Another lord, Gwaihir, the Wind Lord. When it becomes clear that this is the same eagle that actually saved Dori and his friends, one might be more forgiving to that fellow. It is not much that this sharp-eyed fowl has seen, but there is an unusual amount of wolves along the Anduin River, right in the path of their journey. So now awaits the snow-covered peaks of the misty mountains that lie ahead, and places and beasts like that is not without danger. The Longshanks call it the Red Horn. The elves call it Karadras, but the dwarves name it Baran Simbar, and it's a name that brings both sorrow and joy. Underneath her majestic peaks lie the mithril mines of Khazad-dûm. But it is also there the ancient fears and fires came from that brought her downfall. It soon becomes clear that the Caradhras also is a place of sadness and sorrows for Elrond and his sons. They speak of their mother, Celebrian, that met her fate here when she was captured and taken away by orcs. The elves tread lightly in the snow and handle the chilly winds as well as any dwarf, but they need a hand with the beasts and winter grims that stand in the way. That's why we're here, says Master Bloodbow, and releases an arrow. Other kinds of trickery and evil mischief is afoot when a mysterious hooded figure that moves through the mists and snow-filled winds of the Red Horn passes. When Elrohir, for a moment, is lost along the path, his brother's heart is filled with desperation, and our dwarven heroes have to calm him as Bowmaster Nergrim find the tracks. Even despite the confusing reappearance of the ghostly shade ahead of them, are they followed or are they followers? The desperation grows worse before it gets better. But eventually he is found, all safe and sound. Only the mistake of rushing ahead as usual, but no damage is done. Even if it is a relief to reach the other side and the Anduin River, the darker memories of the past lingers in their hearts, and it's hard, especially hard, for the dwarfs to let go of the memories of being so close to Khazad-dûm. Yet the captain is more stirred by the groans and growls of his unfilled belly and the fact that they are very close to the whereabouts of the feared Golden Forest and its sorceress queen. But first things first, nothing is better on an empty stomach. And suddenly he catches a glimpse of a fat little bear cub, just about the right size for a decent meal. To his dismay, the sons of Elrond seems to have the same idea, and the chase is afoot. Never that he will let two pointy-eared elf boys snatch the supper from right under his hairy nose. And as if that is not enough, an unusual amount of hungry wolves want to try and steal this meal too, so there is some fierce fighting to protect this dinner. Even a huge dark warg is brought down. But a little too late, the captain realizes that they have found Mommy Bear. Wolves, wargs and even elves might be fine, but you never get between a bear matron and its cub. That much even Captain Nirgrim knows. When the dying war growls something about Shatur Muntzu, the sons of Elrond goes pale, and yet again their hearts is gripped by sorrow. It appears that was the place from where they saved their mother, although her soul was too scarred and broken to live on. So they lost her to the undying lands. It is clear that they are only two young cubs that mourn and miss their mother. As trusted wardens of the sons of Elrond, the Broadbeams are eventually allowed to pass into the Golden Forest, but Elladan and Elrohir has one last request to ask, and as honorable and trustworthy dwarfs, Nergrim and Nirgrim never leaves a job undone. Lothlorien scouts seem to have a problem with wargs coming down from the Vale, spreading terror in the borderlands. They are led by a big grey one that the elf boys want to catch. One last game of chase then. They often say that we shall go first and lead the way, these webs of Rivendell, don't they? But they rarely follows that lead, and preferably rushes into battle ahead of sturdy and more experienced folk. But we don't have to tell their father or grandmother of such headless behavior, do we? We have all been young, and hot-blooded ones. Finding that big grey one is not much of a problem with a tracker like Bowmaster Nergrim at your side. And they might be bigger and more fierce than expected, but we will show them the true meaning of Baruch Assad, and they all shall perish. At least that grey fleabag is no follower of the Dark Lord, only true to his own master, some Ranulur Warg chieftain. Well, there is some consolation in that. As long as the evils of the world are divided, there might be hope for the good folk. Finally, the younglings can be delivered to their grandfather and grandmother. They await in a garden of quite some beauty, even with dwarven standards. Their grandfather, King Celeborn, seems to be a decent fellow. Even if he's a bit cheap on the food and drink, and never mentions anything about more material rewards than his gratitude. Well, you won't fill an empty stomach with gratitude, my mother always said. So, we better hold Elrond to his deal. But the Queen, aye, that is a frightful and breathtaking sight at the same time. Her gaze seemed to pierce right through you, and her voice echoes of ages lost and gone. She talks about dire coming days, and that two dwarves might play an important role in the great things that lie ahead. Well, that is only to be expected. The brilliant broad beams of the Blue Mountains won't stand back if there is a mighty deed that needs to be done.
Will you lend me your aid
So,
once more?
that's all for now. The further adventures and a level gained for my two boys. Thank you for watching. See you next time when we continue through the Trollshaws.